You know, as we got more and more info about the OnePlus Open, as we got closer and closer to launch, it did seem as though the camera hardware was going to be very good. But camera hardware is really only about half of the story. As we've seen with Google phones, Google devices for years, weaker hardware can in fact produce better photos if the computational photography, the software is simply better. Camera, I must admit, would be an area that I was going to be concerned about with the OnePlus Open, you know, being used to the Pixel Fold or even Samsung's Z Fold. How is this camera going to hold up? Well, I've had it now for a few days. I've taken a whole bunch of pictures, and I've taken a whole bunch of pictures with the Pixel Fold at the same time, the same photos. In this video, we're going to compare. I'm going to let you see for yourself what these photos do indeed look like. And honestly, I think you're going to be about as surprised as I was. I'll give you sort of the TLDR, the short version of this, the spoiler, if you will. The OnePlus Open camera, it's pretty freaking good. So as you can see, we have a lot of photos. I'm not going to go through all of these like by hand and talk through all of them because that would take forever, but you will probably see all of these in some form. We'll also have some video as well as we go through these. The first photo is going to be the Pixel Fold. The second photo will be the OnePlus Open. I'll do my best to call these out as I go. So Pixel Fold, ultra wide camera. I think that this thing does a pretty good job. Like I've said in other videos, though, I do wish that it was more ultra wide. It's just not that wide of a camera. If we zoom in to this sort of shadowy area, there's quite a bit of noise and quite a bit of loss of detail. The colors are maybe just a tad more muted than they ought to be. If we go to the OnePlus Open, it is much, much wider, which I appreciate. What is the point of a wide angle lens if it's not really all that wide? Let's zoom into the same darker area, and it's similar, right? There's still some noise, but I think that might actually be retaining more information. It definitely is. We have more data being retained here on the OnePlus Open, and the colors are definitely popping much more. Maybe ever so slightly overexposed over here. If we go back and forth, though, I'm going to say the OnePlus Open has the better ultrawide in this shot, simply because it does give me the extra field of view, but I also really like the way that these colors are being reproduced. Like I said, if we zoom in here, look at this tree in the background that's got these really bright yellow leaves. It's more bright than that. It's more vibrant than that. It's more in this direction. So I kind of like what they're doing with the colors here. If we go to the standard lens, the Pixel Fold does a good job. There's a lot of detail here. If we zoom into the bark of the tree, the trunk of the tree, pretty good detail being retained as well. Colors are more accurate here. I think it's closer to where it should be. If we look at this tree back here, maybe you can see it just looks a bit brighter, a bit more pop to it. With the OnePlus Open, we kind of got a little bit of like almost like a hazy look over here. Maybe the sun came out from behind the clouds and hit the lens in a particular way, but you can see the colors do look a little bit lighter. If we zoom into the same area, is there more detail here than there was with the Pixel Fold? It's definitely brighter. Brighter might be something that you enjoy. I think the detail's about the same, but I think it's just brighter. Definitely greener as well. So again, differences in the way that they're handling color. So now we're going to go to a 2x zoom. This is going to be a digital zoom on the Pixel Fold. This looks really good. I'm not going to nitpick too much. This looks quite strong. 2x on the OnePlus Open. Again, looks really quite good. The colors are very different. Now, the next zoom on the Pixel Fold is 5x, and that is, of course, 5x optical zoom. So this should be pretty close to lossless. And if we take a look here, the details are pretty solid. If we go to the next zoom on the OnePlus Open, that is a 3x optical. So we're not zoomed in quite as far, but we do still have really, that was strange, much of the very same properties, the same color tones, and a really nice overall level of detail. But of course, the next default zoom on the OnePlus Open is 6x. And if I'm being totally honest with you, and we look at the 6x here of the OnePlus Open and compare that to the 5x of the Pixel Fold, I kind of think the OnePlus Open has more detail and I like the colors better. So this was kind of a surprising thing for me. The OnePlus Open took the pictures I preferred almost across the board here. So looking at some shots of the dogs here, the Pixel Fold has a fairly accurate looking color profile. Again, it's maybe a little bit more muted, not quite as warm as it should be. The OnePlus Open goes very warm though. In fact, this is probably too warm in some areas. Her fur looks quite accurate to me, but the ground is probably warmer than it ought to be. So that's the thing that the OnePlus camera likes to do. It likes to lean warm. Really quickly, just to kind of give you guys an idea of what reality was, you can kind of compare back and forth. If I go in here and edit this, let's go to the warmth, and if I drive it up to about, I'd say about there would be accurate. So you kind of have an idea of what reality looked like, and you can see that the two cameras, Pixel was on one side of reality and the OnePlus was on the other side of reality. Neither one really got it right. Another fall tree here. If we zoom in, you can get an idea of what the detail is here on the Pixel Fold. If we go to the OnePlus Open, again, it is slightly warmer, but I kind of like the way that this ended up looking. And then if we zoom in and see the level of detail, it's at least as good, if not better. These are shots that it's going to really come down to personal preference. Do you want this slightly cooler, really trying to be super accurate look of the Pixel Fold, or a slightly brighter, slightly lighter, slightly warmer look of the OnePlus Open? And then zooming in 5x here, again, this is optical on the Pixel Fold, and it does a really good job. But if we look at 6x on the Open, even though it's only 3x optical, I swear to you, this is resolving more detail. The best way I think I could describe it is that the OnePlus Open tends to have a camera that is giving a more cinematic look. Maybe in some of those later images you could see a little bit more depth of field and just a moodier overall color tone. If that's something that you like, you're probably really going to like the camera on the OnePlus Open. The Pixel Fold seems to kind of lean towards that neutral area, lean towards neutral. Does that make sense? Maybe it doesn't lean in any direction at all. And again, if that's what you like and you want to go in and do your own edits, that might be something that makes more sense to you. However, there is another topic we need to cover, which is motion. What I did here is I took pictures as close to the exact same time as I could of my dog Rose, who was playing, running around very, very quickly. This is the Pixel Fold, and it did a pretty darn good job. In good lighting, it will hold things in focus pretty darn well. Now, the OnePlus Open, as you can see here, didn't do a terrible job, but there was a slight delay. Now, she was, as you can see, absolutely firing off of this stance really, really fast. So it's not really that bad of a job. It's just that when you compare it to the Pixel Fold, it did do a bit worse. But there is an action button on the OnePlus Open. If you're going to be taking pictures of things that are moving rapidly, if you hit this button, you're going to see a pretty big improvement. And you can see this here. So again, this is the Pixel Fold, and it did a pretty good job. Her face is mostly in focus, and she is running hard. The OnePlus Open is right there with it. In fact, it was a little bit quicker in this instance than the Pixel Fold was, and she is probably in even better focus, a little bit more detail being resolved there. To further drive this home, we're going to go inside where the lighting was a little bit worse. We're going to use what I like to call the dog tail wag test. This is the Pixel Fold. The tail is pretty much gone past about the halfway point. If I go to the OnePlus Open at the same time, it actually did a little bit better, maybe, but then with that action mode turned on, definitely even better than that, more of the tail being retained. Not super scientific, but about as good as it's going to get. Now, an area where almost surprisingly to me, the OnePlus Open absolutely was destroying the Pixel Fold is in portrait mode. This is the Pixel Fold, and it does a pretty decent job. Now, I've talked about on this channel the fact that I've had some issues with my portrait mode being more blurred on the left side than the right side if it doesn't see the right subject, and that is definitely a thing I'm still dealing with. But in this instance, it did a pretty good job. Something that the Pixel likes to do here, if we zoom in, is almost over-sharpen things, and it gives certain things like fur a sort of a harsh look. Let's take a look at the OnePlus Open, and you should see immediately a couple of things. Well, maybe a few things. One is that it's zoomed out a little bit further. The OnePlus Open allows you to shoot portraits at exactly 1x, whereas the Pixel Fold, if you go to portrait mode, it says 1x, but it is actually cropped in a little bit. I was standing in the same spot for both of these pictures. You can see one was cropped in, one was not. The other thing you can definitely see is how much warmer, again, this picture is, maybe leaning slightly too warm. If we zoom in, we don't have as much of that sort of overly sharpened look on his fur. To keep things a bit more even though, I did go ahead and zoom in to try and kind of match the focal length as best as I could. And to me, the blur looks better here. If I go back to here, he's in focus like all the way down his back for the most part. Whereas with OnePlus, you do get that nice cinematic look. Maybe you don't love the warmth of this, which I guess if you don't love the warmth of this, you could go in and you could adjust this a little bit. You could go to warmth and you could dial it back. I would say maybe about there was accurate. So we're not talking about like a huge difference, just a little bit overly warm. But again, that's something you could adjust if you wanted to. But the blur, the sharpening, much better on the OnePlus Open. And then stepping inside in some worse lighting, and we did 2x for the zoom, it just didn't do portrait mode at all. It just didn't blur anything really. And there's a lot of noise down here in her mouth. If we go to the OnePlus Open, I mean, do I even need to really like make this case for you? Like you can see what I'm seeing, right? Like like, come on. It's not even remotely close. Now, this next one is a really niche case, but the moon was out and it looked cool. So I zoomed in as far as the Pixel Fold would zoom in. I tapped on the moon and I took a picture. This is what I got. The OnePlus Open, a lot of people don't seem to know this. It will let you zoom into 120x. I don't know why you would ever want to do that, but you can. I don't remember exactly how far I zoomed in for this next shot, but I zoomed in until it basically filled the frame. That's a moonshot on the OnePlus Open. Are you kidding me? That is, and I'm not kidding here. That's better than the S23 Ultra can do. And I guess I should back that up with some data. I posted this on Threads, but I'll show it to you here as well. This was what the S23 Ultra did. And again, for context, that's what the OnePlus Open did. When it comes to moonshots, we have a new king, and it's not a Samsung phone, and it's definitely not the Pixel Fold, unfortunately. But of course, I was outside, and it was dark, so I took some night mode pictures, and I did this with default settings. Okay, I just opened up the camera and took the pictures. And these you're going to see are relatively close. If we zoom in, we got pretty good detail. Colors look pretty decent on the OnePlus Open. Things are left more in shadow. And I'm going to show you a picture at the end of this that I think will illustrate this a bit better. And I don't have a Pixel Fold version to reference, but I can kind of explain to you the difference. The Pixel is trying to brighten everything, and it's brightening up these shadows, which you might like, right? You're going to get more detail there, but OnePlus seems more happy to leave things in shadow. Now, maybe that's intentional. Maybe it's not. I don't really know. This is a very subjective thing. Do you want your night photos to look like they have shadows and dark areas? Or do you want them to be boosted so that you might think that they were taken during the day? And this is another really good version of this. Okay, so these colors are very washed out. But again, it's nighttime. It was quite dark, so that's understandable. The sky has been brightened up quite a bit. Let's look at the OnePlus version. These shadows are much darker. The colors are more saturated. This looks like it was taken more at night to me than this was. Again, this is personal preference. You can tell me what you think. Now, I will tell you that in night mode, the OnePlus Open does not take nearly as long to take a photo. I tried to snap this picture again at the exact same time. This is what the Pixel got. This is what the OnePlus phone got. And besides the fact that she's just totally a smear in this picture, look how sort of washed out all of this grass ends up looking. Like it just looks odd and almost white. Whereas here, it still has the green color to it. So there's a lot of stuff going on in these night mode photos. And it's really, like I keep saying, it's going to come down to your preference. This is the shot I mentioned earlier that I took with the OnePlus phone that kind of blew my mind the way that it handled this. This was in some darker lighting. And as you can see, it didn't try to like really boost these shadows a ton. It didn't do the Pixel thing where it over sharpens the fur. Look how good that looks. That looks so natural. It's not over sharpened. It's not, they're not boosting the darkness. There's not a ton of noise. And that's with the 3x lens. I think that it nailed it. It absolutely nailed that shot for me. I guess I would be remiss if I didn't take a portrait mode shot with both. So this is the Pixel Fold using the cover display as my viewfinder, but using the primary sensors, obviously. Portrait mode looks quite good. Lots of nice detail, a cooler color temperature for their shots. The OnePlus Open has a pretty different look. It looks a little bit warmer. There's sort of a different feel to it all around. The blur looks quite nice. Both of them did a pretty good job with hair with the blur, but look at that there. We actually have some individual hairs not being blurred into oblivion, which is something that the Google phone just does not manage to do all that well. Am I crazy? Or is this the better looking portrait? Although I should say, look at this lamp back here. This should be white and it's like tan. So if there's one criticism I have for OnePlus, it's let's fix the color temperature a little bit. You're leaning too warm too often. On the selfie camera, the Pixel looks really, really similar, whether it's selfie or with the primary sensor. They look remarkably similar. And with the OnePlus device, the blur is not nearly as strong. It looks okay, but some of the cutout, it got the glasses wrong. It's definitely a degraded picture. Look at the hair there being blurred where it wasn't with the primary camera. So you're definitely going to want to take your selfies like this. And if you do, you're going to be pretty happy with them. So we are shooting 4K 30 FPS on both of these devices. Pay attention to that stability, the sound of my voice, the way that colors are being reproduced, the clarity, these beautiful fall colors, all of these sorts of things. Let's see if we can test the zoom as well. So over here, we can simply click on 2 and we are at 2x. Over here, we kind of have to drag this slider and then let go at about 2x. And it looks like both are still just digitally cropping. Let's do 5x on the Pixel Fold, looking quite good. And this thing should, you would think, switch to the other lens at 3x. Let's go ahead and push it up to 5x. How does that look to you? Let me know. All right, so where does that leave me with these two devices? It is complicated. They trade blows in some really, really crazy ways. When it comes to just normal shots, the things you're going to be doing most of the time, they're really, really close. A lot of the time, the OnePlus device goes too warm, and that's going to bother some people. So you can maybe lean towards the Pixel Fold. On the ultra-wide, the OnePlus is just a better camera. When it comes to zoom, even though it's only a 3x optical, it is a high enough resolution that the OnePlus is, again, to me, I think fairly obviously, the better camera. When you zoom way in, you get a big advantage with the OnePlus device. When it comes to portrait mode, there is no competition as far as I'm concerned. When it's an individual person, they're pretty close. Anything else, though, that isn't a human being that the Pixel Fold can detect, the OnePlus Open is absolutely dominant. Again, as long as you can get past the warmer color temperature. But I'd rather have a picture be slightly warmer that I have to bring down a little bit versus a portrait that it just didn't even apply a portrait filter to, which happens on the Pixel Fold far too often for me when it's not, again, a face or something that it can recognize in the foreground. I think video is relatively close. I think the stability looks a bit better on the Pixel Fold, but the contrast and things like that might look a little bit better for the OnePlus device. I think detail and low light are a little bit better for the OnePlus device as well if you're filming inside where the lights are a little bit dimmer. You probably can have less noise in the OnePlus video. Overall, this is a tough one, right? Because you're saying that this phone takes the better normal shots most of the time. But this device is close on normal shots, and it has better zoom, better ultra-wide, probably better video, definitely better portrait mode. So it's going to come down to what you prioritize. I use portrait mode a lot, and I am going to use this to shoot B-roll now, which is something I didn't do here because the video just isn't very good. So for me, this is shocking that I'm even about to say these words. But to me, the better camera is the OnePlus Open. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. I'd love to hear from you guys. Subscribe for more content just like this. And until next time, stay nerdy, man.